Guten Tag! Hello, welcome back to Overclock Showcase. Today, we are on to the second Scout secondary overclock of the series, which is, if you watched the end of the last episode, you would know is Embedded Detonators, which led to me being, I don't know, pretty excited for this one, I think. We all know Embedded Detonators is very, very powerful, and obviously I practice for these videos. That hasn't changed. Embedded Detonators fucking slaps. I think I just got demonetized. But obviously, part of Overclock Showcase is that I try to put forward two builds I think are both viable but also as distinct as possible. That might be the most concise way I've ever put that. But obviously, for me, Embedded Detonators has always been a little bit one note in terms of how I would build it, because it kind of just comes down to pave the way for it to do as much damage as possible, which usually means relying on some kind of electrocution effect to give it the electric damage bonus that the Zhukov's gain. Why is that on screen? Anyway, Zhukov's gain from a tier 5 upgrade, which is of course conductive bullets, and that is the subject of the first build, because the first build is very much so a standard Embedded Detonators build. It's how you should be building Embedded Detonators in the most sort of easy to understand and powerful way. The second build is going to be a little bit different, but still I think very, very sumptuous, very viable, very fun and interesting. And I'm excited to get to that, but I think it's good to start with the standard approach, which is just use the things that make the most sense to cover Embedded Detonators' weaknesses and also make it even stronger, which is why we're taking the Drac with aggressive venting, but of course the important thing being the electrocution mod in tier 4. I'll explain a bit more about Embedded Detonators when I actually talk about the Zhukov, but I do want to talk about this Drac first, because if you don't know, aggressive venting on the Drac is insane. It is one of the most easily placeable S tier overclocks for me. It gives you so much free damage and crowd control. I think it really does overall, and you really consider it, it probably gives you the most AoE that Scout is capable of, I think. And yet we can combine it with the fact that not only do you not lose any ammo, we can still take the electrocution mod in tier 4, which paves way for, as I've already explained, the electrocution damage bonus on the Zhukovs. I do have to admit, I don't technically know that Embedded Detonators gain a damage bonus from electrocution. I'm not sure that anyone knows, and you know what, actually I'm going to have a quick look. Okay, so based on what I found, it seems like the answer is actually no. Now, technically, that would actually make a lot more sense to take Destructive Resonance Amp. But I'm not doing that shit, because even in the case of this build, the Drac, because of how ammo efficient it is, it remains a very, very reasonable HVT killer. So when it comes to things like spreaders and spitters of any kind, those kind of weaker but high priority enemies are perfectly good targets for either weapon. And the electrocution just helps with that a lot. But where it doesn't fail is the fact that we do take IFGs for that reason, because the Embedded Detonators do gain a damage bonus from an IFG, because IFGs are kind of different. I guess they work in the sense that they increase all damage dealt to enemies, no matter where it comes from. Whereas, I guess the programming dictates that when it comes to the damage bonus on the Zhukovs, it only applies from the direct damage. It wasn't coded to work with Embedded Detonators, and that's one of those things that could easily be an oversight or an intentional decision, and we can't really know unless they say something about it or change it. And I doubt they would, because it would only make Embedded Detonators stronger, which I don't think really needs to happen. But even then, I don't think people quite realise how strong this overclock is. And I think pretty much all this applies to Barter version as well, explosive reload, but overall I think Embedded Detonators is probably the stronger version, while explosive reload on Sabata is the more essential version. I think the Sabata benefits from that overclock more than the Zhukovs benefit from this one. The Zhukovs do definitely have other good options. They're definitely the best overclock in the Zhukovs, but I wouldn't call them essential at all. But even still, like I said, I don't think people realize quite how powerful they are, because each detonator, and some explaining is due. So how they work is, as long as the bullets that you fire deals health damage, right? So if you hit enemy armor that blocks damage, you won't embed a detonator, right? but as long as you damage their health with the bullet, you will. And each one deals 38 damage upon reloading. There is the other element of this mechanic, which you probably are aware of, which is the fact that it does actually have a more elaborate status effect built into it, which is kind of the it is sort of a marked for death kind of thing. It's basically an icon that appears when there are enough detonators in an enemy where it's going to die, right? And the best thing about that is, it's not actually that it tells you that. That's cool. That's actually really useful. But it also slows the enemy down by 90% for 2 seconds, which I wasn't aware of until just now, just looking at this on Carl. I didn't know that. I had an inkling that maybe it did slow enemies down, but not by 90%. That's actually pretty substantial. So make of that what you will. Anyway, so I'm sure everyone knows really what embedded detonators are, though. They are a just single target destroyer. They have a really pretty exceptional level of efficiency, although I would argue they are more lethal than efficient, because they just remove threats quicker than anything else, really. They're pretty ridiculously strong, and that's why I think with the mission I've got selected, I'm actually going to change that. I think I really want to do an elimination with this. I think that's the right way to go. I'm also pretty sure I can refresh the rotor, but yeah, I think probably should do an elimination, because I just want to really show off that aspect of it. I mean, the next build will be doing something fairly different to just killing big enemies, so I think it's fair to just go straight in, do an elimination, and really show you what this Overclock is made of. I'm sure most of you know, but this isn't going to be a particularly long mission either. Just to quickly go over some other things, though. I think all these mods make sense. I hope they do to you. We've got ammo in every area that we can. We've got ammo here and ammo there, and magazine size for as much ammo. It leads to over 21,000 total damage that we can apply. That's across both the bullets and the detonators themselves. And accuracy in tier 3, because we're not leaning on direct damage, so I think just our ability to hit the enemies and embed the detonators in the enemies is a lot more valuable. I think that makes perfect sense. So let's just jump into some elimination and rip some dreadnoughts a new one. And here we are. So I guess now it's my opportunity to talk about embedded detonators, how I feel about it before we actually have to fight anything. And I suppose I've kind of already been through that. I mean, it's great. I mean, I don't love it. I think love is an emotion best reserved for other things, not people. People shouldn't be loved. Things should be loved, though. It's best reserved for other things. Embedded detonators, it's not as strong as it is and as fun as it is. It's not close to my heart, but I do respect it somewhat. I do find it weird, though, because I think the Zhukovs do have a bit of an issue. I think they are slightly undertuned. And the thing is, embedded detonators is arguably a little bit overtuned, which leads to an awkward position for the Overclock, where I do see it as something that the Zhukovs are leaning on and possibly are holding it back from getting stronger across the board, because there's this one Overclock that kind of just dominates and is more than strong enough for these high hazard levels. I think there are other examples of that, a little bit. I think you can see that in the Burt a little bit, with its lead spray. I think it definitely does a lot of heavy lifting, and I don't always like that. Anyway, here's our first target. So, yeah. And you see, the thing is about our weapons being so efficient is that we really can lean on the Drak to be a sort of a finisher. We don't have to do all the work with the Zhukovs. In fact, I would urge you to not do that, actually. You would be so much more efficient if you let the Drak take care of some of the stuff. That's weird. Yeah, I mean, just having Beastmaster, it sometimes gets in the way of doing things that involve using the reload button, including reloading. Is that going to die? It is going to die. That electrocution's stronger than I thought. Well, there you go. So yeah, the stuff that we're doing right now, or we've just been doing for the last couple of seconds, is really just like basic sort of cleanup stuff that isn't like... While embedded detonators is still very strong there, it's really just, like I said, it's just cleanup. It's fairly mediocre. It's not really taking advantage of what it does, but we're still being very efficient, and just sort of mopping things up with ease. Our two weapons working in unison. Actually, no, I'll take this one. Okay, I guess not. Obviously, I typically prefer a guard. Now, things like the Stingtail, this is why, by the way, if you want to take Unbreaking instead, that's completely understandable. You would gain a lot from Unbreaking because, like I've already established, you need to hit enemy. You need to deal health damage to inflict detonators. It's not necessarily that you can't hit armor. I think guards armor you still inflict health damage through, even though it reduces the damage done. So guards are like fine, but anything with heavy armor, so Praetorians and Stingtails and Shellbacks especially, they're a big one. Anyway, here's our first Praetorian. Here's our first group. But I'm going to do the Praetorian standard style. So we're just going to throw the IFG down, just lay into it. And that's pretty much all. We don't need to, waste another detonator on that. That's fine. And obviously there's aggressive fencing being absurdly powerful, as always. Oh, how did I miss that? Anyway, let's take this leave. And I think there's nothing better to do than just to jump into this first Dreadnought fight. I doubt I'm going to need a resupply during it, so... And in fact, no matter what it is, I thought it might be the twins, and that is completely fine. I can handle the twins. Anyway. Time to lock in. So the Arbalest is one where we're going to be able to deal a lot of damage to it. Oh, I think I actually really fucked up there. I didn't realise that the Arbalest's armour was like that, basically. So that was actually a bit of a misstep on my part. I kind of perceived it as sort of guard type armour, where it's like medium armour, basically. So it's not blocking damage fully. I guess there's technically 4 types of armour. I guess? Light, medium, heavy, and invulnerable, which is what not Dreadnoughts. Actually, technically, invulnerable armor is just any part of an enemy's body that you can't damage. So I wouldn't necessarily call it an armor category. Right, let's do this again. Yeah, so the dangerous thing here, obviously, is that we have to shoot it in the mouth. So I guess I should be playing this a little bit more safe than I am. No doubt you're seeing how much damage it's doing, though. I think I'm just getting a little bit overconfident. Because of that absurd amount of damage that we're dealing. Right, okay, I'm gonna go find some sugar, I think. Also, sometimes it's weird. It's something you can't really have much control over, or I certainly don't. Sometimes I'm just not in the right... I wouldn't even call it headspace, because it's a very subconscious thing, but I guess subconscious to space too. You kind of just enter a state or a lack of the appropriate state where things like positioning and being in the right place to just sort of avoid things like the Arbalest shotgun attack, they're kind of just not happening. Your sort of subconscious just isn't really taking its usual course, and things just aren't going as well as normal. Yeah, I think that is definitely a thing that affects a lot of people. If you look out for it, you'll probably notice that happening to yourself. That's another great thing about things like this, though, better detonators, because it can do that. Wait, do I have Born Ready? Oh, I did not plan this very well. There's something you could do with Born Ready, and you know what? I might actually do something at the end of the video where I show that off, because what you can do with Born Ready against Dreadnought specifically, I think it's probably easier to do against the other types of Dreadnoughts. I think you can do it against any of them. Is you basically build up embedded detonators without reloading. And what that means is you can continuously build up a ridiculous amount of embedded detonators without them going off, like more than you could within a magazine, and then you can set them off at some point and just insta-kill the Dreadnought. So I think I'll try and do something like that at the end of the video. But for now, I mean, okay, obviously a little bit of a bit of a mishap led to me going down, but because we used more Zhukov ammo than Drak, but we still didn't use all of it, and we really just dealt with the Dreadnoughts with pretty much no difficulty as far as our damage output was concerned. Like I said, I could have played it better in terms of avoiding attacks and whatnot, but we got the job done, and embedded detonators made it a lot easier. We still have to be careful because, especially against the Lacerator, where this is why, once again, if you take the armor breaking, I wouldn't blame you at all, because it would mean you can much easier time embedding the detonators from the Arbalests, from the Lacerators behind. where we were having to shoot it in the mouth because it would take too long to break the armor. But of course, being in front of the mouth meant I was getting set on fire. So yeah, if you want to take the unbreaking, feel free. I just generally find the electrocution to be more useful, and make the Drac a little bit more independent. Anyway, I'm going to quickly go explore over here, so I think I'll see you... Well, maybe if some enemies show up, it's worth showing. Okay, obviously, these kind of scenarios are going to be very Drac biased, but I did hear a stalker. Okay. And I want to kill that stalker with embedded detonators. There it is. Easy. Oh, I can get Steve. Okay. I will continue my previous exercise excursion. And now this is a better horde, I think. In fact, I'm actually going to IFG this bunch for the purposes of aggressive. Because you can see that in action. Do that to the Praetorian. Oh. That's actually close to setting that on fire. Anyway. Oh! I move. Oh god. Okay. Right, let's move on from that. That away, I think. Oh. I wasn't expecting him to be on better come out of health already. Hi. Oh god, this... Oh wow. Okay. Oh, I only hit one. Obviously the plan there was to hit both spitballers with the IFG. That would have been perfect. Alas. Accidentally pet the spitballer. What the fuck? Obviously I didn't. I pet Steve. That was not what I was expecting. I was trying to vent against it. So yeah, that's another thing. We basically have two weapons that involve sort of like extraneous reload mechanics, if you like, that Steve can often interrupt. Wait, this is where the Dreadnought's going to be though, isn't it? Although, this terrain is god-awful. It's covered in lava. Covered in lava. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I should be I should be better than this. Like, straight up. I mean, the problem I have is I really don't. It's just so not in my DNA to play aggressively. Even with games where it's like literally the point, like Doom Eternal, it's really difficult. I mean, I've kind of forced myself into it with that, but I've been playing more of that than this, I guess. Don't worry. It will all go well from here. But I guess I should do this first. This should... I mean, obviously the intention is to fail because I just use Tritolites as like wave dispensers. Although in this case, that's not the most useful thing because they usually just spawn waves of grunts, really. We're not going to get that much out of it. Nevertheless. Here we go. Oh, it's actually not far. Well, I mean, it's not far away, but that convenient still. Oh, This is what I mean though, because it's just all grunts, which for the next build would actually be perfect. But for this one, it's not going to be showing up embedded detonators. I'll tell you what, I'll do this normally. What did you say? Anything? Nothing happened. That's not the magma core. What? That's not what you're talking about. All you need to know is I'm now using Born Ready. Yeah. Let's leave it at that. You'll mind. Obviously they don't mind. It'd be nice if they minded. Anyway, you go. So this is going to be purely weird. I'm not going to be doing anything like, I'm not going to be finishing this mission. I'm just going to be showing off that thing I talked about. That's the position I put myself in after dying. So it's going to be a slightly weird process, but I think I do want to capture it all. Yeah, I will at least use the detonators briefly on these parts. I think that'll be enough for that. And because these things are really weak. Okay, so that easily did the one I shot more into. But in general, yeah, I want to be shooting nothing but my Zhukov into his ass, and then letting myself reload with one ready. Okay. How did I get up there? Okay. And I expect him to close. Now I need to be really careful because I actually can't use the Zhukovs now. Even against these guys. Which is fine. We'll manage. Wish I could use them, but I won't be able to reload. Otherwise it would all be ruined. Was he closed? You know, that's actually a good thing, I think. I think this means that after he opens up again, I will be able to just kill him immediately. After a few rounds of embedding the Detonators. This isn't exactly how I planned the video to go, but I think it's still going to be showing off an interesting thing you can do with this Overclock nonetheless. That's a fine thing to do as far as I'm concerned. Right, I do need to find some health though. Oh, look at that. Perfect. I should say, I'm not 100% sure this hasn't been patched out. Is he ready to blow? Okay. Well, all I need to do is this then. There you go. Get out of here. That's embedded detonators in its most standard, raw, powerful form. Amazing at killing any given enemy. But he's, of course, more of a single target weapon still. Not going to be destroying crowds of enemies. It can still do pretty good against a group of grunts because each bullet does so much damage by itself. But it's just an absolute single target obliterator of any scale. You can go from the weakest enemy, apart from swarmers. Don't use this against swarmers. Useless. Waste of ammo. But you can go from the weakest enemy to the strongest enemy, and it's an amazingly efficient way of just dealing with them quickly. Nothing deals with enemies as quickly as embedded detonators does. And we could say the same about hordes, because that is where our next build resides. I'm going to obviously on to right about now. So the second build came to be a lot slower. It wasn't an immediate realization. I did know that I probably wanted to do something with blow through when I started, but the fact that I landed on Hipster and landed on Hipster in this form was not what I expected. So let's start with our Zhukov. So this is a Zhukov. This is embedded detonators built for crowd clearing, kind of. So it's actually very similar in some ways. We take ammo tier 1 because it's the best of the two. For the same reason we take a magazine size as well, and accuracy even. Just because it's more useful than damage. Even though there is the chance that having it spread across enemies a bit more erratically could actually potentially be more useful, I think I still prefer having the control because obviously in tier 4 we take blow through. And as a result we lose out on 100 ammo. But of course, as long as we're hitting more than one enemy, we're getting a lot more bang for our buck. So I don't think it's a loss at all. This is meant to be for crowd clearing, for decimating hordes of grunts. And that's pretty much it. But it is also going to be used in tandem with our primary to handle bigger enemies if need be. So it's actually a very flexible, synergistic build. And in tier 5, get in, get out, because we don't have anything to activate conductive bullets. So it just makes a bit more sense. I'm probably going to be very rarely emptying the magazine anyway, but it can happen. Which is why, by the way, taking fire rate isn't a terrible idea either. It means a small magazine, which means get out will get activated more often, and you can kind of just get the bullets into enemies quicker anyway. But the Zhukovs have such a high fire rate that I'm really not worried. So that's fine. But obviously, where this gets weird is our second, well, you could call it the secondary in this case, but of course our primary being an M1000 with Hipster. How did that happen? It happened because I felt like I needed something that was dependable, had like decent damage per shot, but more importantly had a reliable ammo pool. So I came up with damage-based Hipster. And this went through like two forms mainly, which was basically dependent on this tier. Of course, it has arm breaking and blow through damage and the reload here. All of this is pretty much just how it should be. The blow through is going to help us also be a sort of a crowd clearer kind of thing, or more so hit the tankier enemy through the crowd. Something we'll probably be doing a lot. But yeah, tier 3 changed a lot because obviously when it comes to Hipster, you're probably taking extended clip because that makes it more of a Hipster, a hip fire focused weapon that you can output a lot of bullets in a short amount of time. But when I found out about a certain breakpoint, which was that you can actually one-shot grunts with a focus shot as long as you take this, I found that a bit too tempting to not take. Even though this M1000 is mainly meant to be a single target weapon, that ability to one-shot the grunts in that way is really, really nice. And it means that because it's kind of the difference between using the Zhukovs at every grunt that we see and not. And I'd rather not have to use the Zhukovs every time there are grunts at all. Because you really should if you're not taking the increased focus shot damage, because otherwise you have to use at least 3 bullets from the M1000 to kill the grunt, as opposed to 2. And I think that's a big difference with the M1. Even with Hipster, the difference between 2 and 3 bullets is still a big difference when it comes to our overall ammo pool. So I think I'm on the right side of history here. And it's with pheromones because why not? It means you get these really big clumped up groups of enemies kind of on the same level, and it really makes using embedded detonators against them feel very good. I'm not going to take more enemies on this one though. I'm not going to go up to that point because I don't think it's really particularly fair. This is a scout build that isn't inherently just using one of Scout's like primo AoE options. You know, 90% of the time that I do a Scout video, he's going to be using one of the go-to AoE options on one of the weapon slots. In this case, I would say that he's not. I think some people do consider Hipster one of them. I don't. I don't think the M1000 can really be considered a proper crowd clearer. I don't think blow through is a good substitute, but I think when you have it on both weapons, you get pretty close. So I'm very comfortable with this build, and I found it very interesting to come to terms with it being actually pretty good. Because I certainly wasn't expecting it to be. I just hoped that it would be when I first conceived of it. But this is probably me using the Zhukovs a tad less than we were in the last mission, though. just not that great at this, am I? I really should be so much better at this game than I am. Okay. Trust me, this build really does come into its own when you're facing down just a dense group of grunts. It feels really good. So I'm sure I hope that we'll have the opportunity to do something like that.
Connect the pipeline to the pump jack. Ain't no hiding from me, bug. Requesting pump jack.
Pump jack launched. Stay clear from the impact zone.
Covering fire.
Hold on. Okay, there's no real difference between that and that. The way that I do it. Uncharged shot and normal shot is the same as 3 normal shots in this case. But not against grunts. Against grunts, that breakpoint changes drastically. And as we can see, against the weakest of enemies, it's still very valid to use the Zhukov to finish them off, even if they're on their own. Here we go! Also, a great thing about this M1000 is the one-shotting of web splitters. Oh, it's an entirely swarmer-based horde. Well, I can't really do anything about that, can I? Guess I can do a little bit, but that's silly. Okay, actual horde, good. Swarm rather. I apologise to hordes. So yeah, focus shot based hipster. Not something you see very often, if at all. So I'm happy to show it to the world. And show that it's not the worst idea in the world. Alright, it's absolutely a pheromone situation. Now we can just do this. Lovely. Yeah, the only thing about it doesn't deal with these things very quickly, which is the thing I did prefer about having it with magazine size, where I could just spam and actually kill these things quite quickly. But we are technically more ammo efficient this way. I have to admit. I wish we could just go crazy caveman brain mode, but efficiency trumps all if I book. But it really doesn't always. Sometimes just being able to just go shoot dead is better than min-maxing, I think. That's not like scientific. It's not scientifically better based on the maths, but I do think it's just better sometimes to just like, yeah, I could just kill this thing quickly. I mean, it's not the most efficient way of doing it, but it is the fastest. Sometimes that is better. It's kind of hard to explain why. It is a bit of a nebulous concept, but I think it does have something to do with game feel as well. It's kind of like, it just feels better. It's more useful sometimes to just get the job done quicker, even if you could do it more efficiently. I think there are ways to argue that just killing shit quickly is stronger than being the most economic, having the most economic build possible. Anyway, so you saw embedded detonators working as sort of this weird kind of crowd clearer by burrowing into multiple grunts at the same time and just sort of taking them out, or just leaving them on slivers of health. I find it quite difficult to really be precise about it, but I still found it to be a nice way of dealing with crowds that actually... It's very rare that I find blow through good enough for this kind of thing, so, and in this case I really do. And I think it's the combination of both. Two weapons that actually benefit quite a bit from having blow through. Together, I feel like blow through actually has a place. It does, it's not like it doesn't, ever. Like, I think the minigun having blow through is actually pretty good. But sometimes it isn't, like the Bulldog. No. The Burt. No. The only thing it benefits there is electromagnetic, which sucks! Other examples include...
I think we're actually doing all right so far.
Actually, I don't know. I can't think of too many others. I guess the Zhukovs... Not the Zhukovs, obviously the Zhukovs have it. I guess the Barter has it now as well, but it's not great. It's kind of just there to be like, this is what you should use if you're using the cryo cannon with the Barter. Which is obviously something that I wouldn't really advise anyway. It can be good, but it's not recommended. Anyway. Oh, lots of nitra to get, but you don't want to see me mining nitra. Oh god. Oppression. I think it might be prudent to take a resupply. I have a resupplier? I don't.
I'm taking some of the ammo. Yeah.
Let's go. What is with the swarmers? They are literally the only thing that embedded detonators is bad against. And if you need an explanation why, because they do way more damage than they need to, but obviously have a lot less ammo because of the overclock. So they're a frustrating enemy to have to use a detonator against. And there's a lot of them. Like, for goodness sake. I hope it's coming through. I've had really good experiences with this build in practice, so I hope it's coming through in footage. I don't necessarily feel like it is. Although I will say, it's a weird thing where I did have a better time with the bigger magazine version, but I do technically believe this version is better. I think. Anyway, I just think it's fun that the Zhukovs can be used in this way. So typically, the way that you would use blow through is mainly for cryo minelets, but also now I would also say for gas recycling too. Gas recycling can go either way though. Gas recycling can be a single target killer, but probably a bit more suited to crowd clearing. And that's a video I won't mind making when we get around to it. Of course, it'll be a while, even if it's technically the next Zhukov overclock. It'll still be a while we get round to it. But I'm not opposed to it. I do like gas recycling, and I always had a thing for it. And sort of like a vision of what it could be as well by adding armor breaking to it, and that's something that, of course, that they did. I don't know if that's because of me. I doubt it, but it is possible. It's unlikely, but possible. So I'm not going to take credit for that, but it would be awesome if my idea, that is the result of my idea. But there's no real way of knowing that. I don't know when that happened either. I think it was season 3. I think it was season 3 or 4, but I don't think it was 4. I think I remember the ones from 4 a bit more distinctly because it was a pretty focused, just overclock buffing extravaganza. And one nerf, they nerfed neurotoxin during that, but that was fine. That was probably needed. It's still ridiculous. Whoosh! Ow. Here. Okay. Well, let's just wait for Bosco to get that done, I guess.
Extracting the liquid morkite. Return to the refinery and start up the pump sequence.
Might as well use the pheromone quickly. This is the exact kind of board that's good against us. See, now our Zhukovs have been used a fair bit more than I want. So let's change that a little bit. The bodies. They paint the floor.
I think we actually have a chance to make it out alive.
Hold on to your gizzards, team. Swarm incoming. The liquid morkite is being extracted. Refinery and all pump jacks are working at full capacity.
Oh.
The noise will draw in the locals.
Yeah.
Stay on your toes and do what you can to protect and maintain the
Okay.
secondary objective completed. Now finish the job. The refinery is attracting the bugs. Hold the line while the pump sequence continues. Swarm! Repeat, swarm! Liquid morkite is being extracted. Pump sequence at 25%.
Alright, in this case I'm actually going to use the 1000 to break the Praetorian armor, and then use the Zhukovs, because the chance of me hitting the Praetorians in the instant are very high. God, I want to play Skyrim so bad. And I know that Avowed isn't Skyrim, but at least that's coming up.
We got a leak. Locate it and fix it.
No players ready.
The stream of incoming enemies is practically eradicated, and you're still alive. Well done.
Oh yeah, M1000 against swarmers. That's all about. The thing is, this is something that Cryominus, by the way, would actually be very good at. It's not that Zhukovs can't deal with swarmers. Cryominus is actually very good against swarmers. It's actually better, I'd say, than Cryo bolts on the crossbow.
Light is up.
Oh no! Could have tamed him. Tame this one. Little baby Steve. I'll call you Steve. Stevie, I wonder.
I needed that.
I don't think I'm gonna line them. Actually, this is perfect. thrilling gameplay. And this is the thing, imagine if I was using other Hipster, like with more ammo, how even greater the disparity would be between the M1000 and the Zhukovs. So I'm pretty sure you do get a plenty more like total damage if you take the ammo. Well.
Oh yeah.
So it's not like it's a bad idea. But it would just create a really hilarious disparity. Well, I'm really glad I finished that Indiana Jones game. I mean, it was good. Indiana Jones and the Great Circle. It was good, but I was also, I don't know, it was not gripping for the entire. In fact, basically, I think every like location wore out its welcome within like an hour or two, at most. I thought the ending was pretty cool though. Not the final fight, just the ending like set piece basically. I don't think anyone's actually played that game. I mean, it's done pretty well, the new Indiana Jones game. And it's definitely a machine games game. I like that. Machine games are pretty cool. I do want to see them go back to Wolfenstein now. I think that'd be great. Actual proper third game. Not that Youngblood has to be retcon necessarily, but there's obviously more between New Colossus and Youngblood, so they can kind of overcome that game's sort of the loss that it represents, I guess, of faith in Wolfenstein.
Sequence at 75%. The cargo rocket is almost full.
Oh dear.
They're leaking. Get on it. Get them fixed.
Oh dearie me.
That guy's mission control. He really has a nosy. Oh, I'm out of here. Bosco, fix this. Lighting up.
Hi. Enemies climbing along the pipes has been like a nice way to line up blow-through shots, actually. I like that.
Go with the flow.
Well done. All pipelines are fixed, and the refinery is purring like a kitten once more.
Ready to kill some more crates. Red sugar.
Lock and load, team. Swarm incoming.
Yeah, give me some sugar.
Yeah, let's leave.
I have lost the
I don't know, because that swarm was announced that it means it is coming, even though I've activated the extraction phase. Oh, okay, maybe not. I think time's passed enough for it to have started by now.
pheromones. Crawlies attack each other.
Well done. Cargo rocket is returning to orbit. We're sending in the drop pod to get you out. Hang tight.
Weapon one down. No, the players are reaching.
Oh my god! Where'd that snatcher come from?
Drop pod departing in T-minus 3 minutes.
Yes.
Bosco, you're the best.
Oh yeah. No, we don't need any of that stuff. No, I think that's it. Really, for Better Detonators. It still remains incredibly strong in no matter what form you take, but obviously, if you go down this road of trying to use the blow through and go for some kind of AoE thing, you do end up with, while effective, a very ammo hungry Embedded Detonator Zhukov. I can't give that a strong recommendation. But nothing has changed in terms of being able to very strongly recommend just the general embedded detonators single target build. It's still insanely powerful. If you'll forgive my terrible pitfalls of competency in recording, it still just shreds through any given enemy. And this is also, I did kind of want to do an industrial sabotage actually at one point, because fuck that.
Mission completed.
It really shows off how strong it is, because it's like amazingly powerful against like every part of the caretaker, against the appendages and the vents and the eye. It's pretty fantastic. So that would have been nice, but I think Dreadnoughts were the way to go. They really just put on display the immense single target prowess of the Overclock. So yeah, that's really it. I strongly recommend it, but I don't think there's that much room to play with it. But then again, that's kind of because the Zhukov doesn't have a very interesting build tree anyway. Its mod tree is pretty flat, and you typically its overclocks are typically best off built in very linear directions anyway. But they're still amazingly powerful and fun to use, so the recommendation stands and will continue to stand unless some weird shadow nerf occurs. So that's Embedded Detonators. As always, if you enjoyed this episode of how do I normally do this? No, this is normal. If you enjoyed this episode of Overclock Showcase, please make sure to like and subscribe. And if you want to see more videos like this and you want to stay on top of everything to do Deep Rock and Roll Call, and also click that bell. But now, as many of you hopefully know, because I hope some of you watch to the end like this, we find out what next week's Overclock is going to be. This, of course, is going to be our first, well, I guess the first Gen 2 Engineer Secondary Overclock, I guess. So it's going to be the Breach Cutter this time. In case you don't know how this works, though, we numbered the overclocks from like left to right, top to bottom. So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and I use a Wheel of Fortune to choose via those numbers what the next overclock is going to be. I don't have a particularly strong agenda, but I might as well say it. I mean, I haven't been treated well by fate by hiding my inhibitions. So I'm just going to say, not too infused about Return to Sender. I will be happy with any other option though. I think it still do me good to use Return to Sender a bit, but it's definitely not what I'm hoping for. So if I see it land on 3, I'm going to flip 7. 7. What's 7? Oh, high voltage crossover. Why not? That's a good one. Not the most exciting one, but it is definitely good. So that, of course, will be next week. So once again, thank you all for watching, and I'll see you next time for high voltage crossover. Although, what is a embedded detonators drink? I mean, Burning Love is really, because it kind of like happens afterwards. I mean, all the effects happen after you've had the drink, but I'm grasping at straws here. Let me have it.
That sucks.
Be careful, because any kind of salute can end up being like very weirdly taken in this day and age. It's because it's kind of normal, even though you do like a normal normal salute like that, it's very easy to accidentally throw it off in this direction and end up doing something you really don't want to do. Anyway, or you could do like Rimmer's salute from Red Dwarf. I can't remember. Is it like this or? Yeah, it's like something like that. Kind of spins and hits himself on the head with it. Alright, bye.